Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval. I'm your host. And today we have the topic of spiritual warfare in divorce. And so I talk often about the four pillars of self-care: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. We're going to be touching on that spiritual one today with my guest, who I am unbelievably excited. I know I say that every week because I do get excited about doing this podcast every week, but I was so excited today. I was even usually it's my daughters on the way to school who are teens that are just chitter-chattering. And I was just chitter-chattering like, my guest, because they know my guest today, and I was like, oh, he's going to be on a podcast and we're going to talk about this. So, man, I feel like a teenage girl. I'm so excited. So I know that's weird, but I am really, really excited. But before I introduce him, again, the divorce quiz is still up at the website. It is an awesome opportunity for you to gauge where you are at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it. So check it out. You can go to the website and at the divorcedadvocate.com and click on the divorce quiz tab, or you can go directly to the quiz at thedivorcequiz.com. So check that out. My guest today is an executive speaker coach and speechwriter who also loves communicating the truth of the Bible to people in a way that helps them see God, his goodness, and direction more clearly. He's the author of I Am a Field, a book that helps readers see themselves as fields and God, and as a good farmer who wants to grow great things in their lives. He speaks at various churches and retreats and lives in Highlands Ranch, Colorado with his wife and two daughters. Welcome, Jeff Davenport.
Thanks so much. I'm really glad to be here. I'm as giddy as a teenage girl. Contagious.
Well, hey, I'm gonna say maybe they're rubbing off on me the opposite way of like I should be rubbing off on them, but that's not necessarily a good thing to have excitement and joy in your life, and they do absolutely bring that to me. But I thought the correlation, usually and sometimes on the show I'm lamenting the teenage times, and I know that you have children too in that, or have been through that as well. So I thought that that was good, and I do want to say, Jeff, I teased you about this when we talked a little while ago. I had the distinct pleasure of having you come to our church sometimes and talk, and it was 3 or 4 weeks ago when you shared the message that prompted me to think about, while I was sitting here going, oh, we need to talk about this. And I think you titled your speech Saboteur and Spiritual Warfare. And immediately I thought, man, this is something we need to talk about on my show with the divorced or divorcing dads. So it struck me, but as I was sitting there, I look over and my 16-year-old daughter is sitting at attention, listening, like enthralled to your talk. As if that wasn't enough, Jeff, then we get up at the end of service and she immediately looks at me and says, that was the best service and message I've ever heard. And I know that you are an accomplished speaker, but I've still been trying to figure out a way, like can we get a certificate for you, like for that? Because that is seriously saying something, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, and your daughter's very kind, and I hope something good came out of the talk for her.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe why you decided at this time to touch on that topic.
Well, let me just say to your listeners or viewers, boy, there's nothing more exciting than having a Bible teacher on. So I just want to assure you, I don't know, hopefully this doesn't feel like I'm going to sermonize to everyone. That's not my goal, and that's not, I know, your goal either, Jude. And so,
sure.
When as you said, my day-to-day isn't preaching or anything like that. My day-to-day is I work with executives, salespeople, marketers, engineers to help them communicate more clearly, and I write speeches for them, and I coach them on delivery. But then about once a month at some sort of local church house, usually the one you attend, I'll go and preach. I'm actually preaching this weekend. And when I get that opportunity, it's exciting for me because it's an opportunity to take the things that I believe God has been teaching me, not always easily, sometimes in a really challenging way, and to translate those to people, hopefully in a way that sticks and impacts the way they see God, the way they see themselves, the way they see the decisions they need to make. And so a few weeks back, as you said, sometimes I get to come up with a topic, sometimes I don't. And that week I didn't get to come up with the topic necessarily. We were going through a book of the Bible, and we just happened to land on a section in this book that was very kind of eerie and weird in what was going on. And so I thought, all right, well, if we're talking about eerie and weird, I think we need to talk about spiritual warfare, which is such a daunting phrase, isn't it? That seems daunting to me.
Yes. Well, and the book you're talking about is Acts, which is a little right all the way through. And your ability to take that and then put a message to it is absolutely phenomenal. And I want to tee up this idea of spiritual warfare. And I do also want to point out what you said, which was, God prompting us with challenges in our lives to pay attention to, and that those can be hard. And the folks listening, the men listening, the dads listening, are going through a challenge, and a lot of them are going through a very difficult challenge. And so for those of you that are not spiritual or are agnostic or are testing or have fallen away from your faith, I strongly encourage you, don't tune out right now, to listen to what we're going to talk about, because this is going to develop over the podcast. It's not just a real quick one, like we're going to talk about prepping meals for your kids, right? So this one's going to develop. So stay with us on that, and we're going to talk about how spiritual warfare in divorce is critically important to not only your life, but also to your children as well. But I want to tee that up with a clip, and everybody please be patient with me on this, because I'm old and this is Zoom and technology, so I got to go through this share screen to get it all shared, and the clip, and so I'm doing that now, and I've got this clip. All right, let's do this.
This morning I want to talk about spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare. Because we, as Jesus followers, are meant to take up arms against our oppressor. We are meant to function like the resistance, doing acts of sabotage against an unseen enemy. So here's where I'm going this morning. There is an unseen battle with lives at stake, and we are meant to fight. Jude, all I can think is that my beard was a lot better then. It was really
That looks great, but man, that just gives me tingles when I watch it again, and I watched it a couple of times. It's important. So tell us first. Let's start out with what is spiritual warfare?
Well, what's warfare? Warfare is anytime you have recognized, you look throughout history. And as I said at the beginning of my talk, as a man in his 40s and upper 40s, I'm required by law to be very, very interested in World War II. And so I think of it as like World War II. World War II, we've got the bad guys and we've got the good guys. And the bad guys are trying to take over, and the bad guys are trying to have sway and influence and take away freedom. The good guys are going, you're not going to do that on our watch. We're going to rise up and stop you. And so you have the Allied forces, you have the United Kingdom, you have France for some time, and then you have eventually the United States taking up a stand against these people who were trying to take over and destroy. And that's what warfare is that you take it so seriously that it becomes, and forgive this word, but it becomes a violent endeavor. And when we think about spiritual warfare, it's not just, oh, well, there's some bad things that happen, and I don't know, I guess they just sort of happen, and I'll just kind of live my life and go my way. It's recognizing there are, well, this will sound real, but evil forces at work that we cannot see. That's the Axis powers. And we are meant to take it so seriously that we join in violent armed conflict. Now, obviously, it says in the scriptures, it says, now hang on, don't look at someone else and go, they're my enemy. A human is my enemy. It says that's not the battle we fight. We fight against these unseen spiritual forces. And we are meant to be respond with violence. And when I say violence, again, I don't mean you go get a gun. I mean that you take it so seriously that you fight on behalf of yourself and the people who you're meant to defend. And so when you think of when you think of G.I. Joe out on the lines, he was not only fighting on behalf of himself, he was fighting on behalf of his family at home. He was fighting on behalf of his friends. He wasn't just there for him. And I think that's a big important aspect of spiritual warfare. It's taking so seriously the powers of destruction that we cannot see, that you do what's necessary and sometimes uncomfortable to battle those forces.
Okay. And so in my feelings, in my estimation, divorce to me feels like that is one of those things, one of those battles that we oftentimes, and so when we're going through a divorce, and a lot of those listening, and I know this was my case, we say, why? Because sometimes it's not by our choice. Sometimes it is by our choice, and sometimes it was forced by our choice. But why is this happening? And it becomes like, an understanding that you have to fight this battle then for your family. And again, like you're saying, this isn't to say that your enemy is your ex or soon to be ex, or the attorneys, or any of this, that it's a mindset around this is a battle. And so tell us then and explain to us why the spiritual warfare battle is important.
Let me double down on something you just said real quick. And it's that the humans are not our enemy. It's easy for me to say that right here, but talking to guys who are going through divorces, have gone through divorces, very destructive divorces, I could see how it would be nothing but natural to look at your wife, ex-wife, especially the lawyer guy, gal, and go, oh my word, they're my enemy. I get that. And yet I don't know that there's a lot of health to that.
Not at all. Yeah.
It's meant to go, okay, that's them. They're doing what they're doing. That's not, my goal isn't to suddenly change them. My goal is to navigate these waters on behalf of myself and behalf of other people. The reason all of this is so important, at least in the Bible, what you see in the Bible is that it's odd to say this, because I don't know what you think of when you think of the Bible, but the Bible is really this description of this massive battle going on and all these smaller campaigns along the way. And the battle is, there is an enemy, Satan, a big old liar, and all of his minions, not the little yellow minions from Despicable Me, but actual demons who want to get all of us humans destroyed. It says Jesus, when he was walking around on earth, Jesus, as loving and kind and like, well, hey, everything's great, let's love each other, as he was serious about this stuff. And he says in John 10:10, he says, there is an enemy. And he says, the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And then Jesus contrasts that with himself, and he says, but not me. I come that you may have life and have it to the full. Now, what Jesus is not saying is, so okay, the enemy wants to do all this bad stuff. I'm going to make your life so easy. It's going to be a puppy farm and daisies everywhere. That's not what he says, because we see all throughout Scripture, bad crap happens. It just does. The stuff is going to happen, euphemistically. The stuff is going to happen. Yep. The enemy wants us to respond in a way that leads to our joy and happiness even, and our health being stolen, killed, and destroyed. Jesus's hope and his offering for us in the midst of all that crap is that we would have life and have it to the full. And that is hard to think of. Our family just went through a very difficult, challenging health crisis in December, and it was so clear that in the midst of that, the enemy's going, "Ooh, I'm gonna take them out."
Yeah.
And the Lord was going, even in the midst of this, I can help you have life and have it to the full. And that's the war. Like, will we side over here, or will we go? Will we wave the white flag and go, enemy, you got me. I'm going to be bitter, angry, frustrated, rude, terrible. I'm going to drink myself into oblivion and let my kids, whatever. This all just happened. And when that happens, the enemy goes, yay, I win.
Right. So number one point is we're going to have challenges. We're going to have challenges. We're meant to have challenges in this life, and they're meant for us. What I'm hearing you say is pay attention, right? Like, you have a choice then, and then you can, and tell me what you think of this. If you can reframe this as to what is this doing for me, as opposed to why is this happening to me? Like, what is God's plan for me? What is the plan for my life? What direction am I supposed to be taking with this? Then perhaps that helps, at least in the beginning, face that challenge.
I love that. I'm a big movie guy, and I feel like I see God's truth in movies that have nothing to do with God. And one of my favorite movies is Castaway with Tom Hanks. And my wife and I were watching it recently for the 89th time or something. And there is this subtle little moment where Chuck Nolan, the Tom Hanks character, is finally getting off the island. If you've seen the movie, he's been stuck on this island for, I think it's like 3 or 4 years. He's emaciated. He just wants to get off. And so he's finally on this raft. And if everyone knows this movie, he's got his little volleyball, Wilson, that he's buddies with. And he talks to this volleyball because he's losing his mind, but he talks to this volleyball. They finally get out on the raft. They build a sail. It goes over. Oh, yay, we're going to make it out. We're going to make it out. A storm hits. And the big sail that they have on this thing gets blown away in the midst of this terrible storm. And Chuck looks at Wilson in the midst of this storm as if responding to an unheard question from Wilson. And he says, I don't know why. as if Wilson had said, why do you think that just happened? And Chuck's going, I don't know why that terrible thing just happened. And I think we have to, as humans, we get wrapped around the axle on, but why did this terrible thing happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? I believe that sometimes God will give us insight into why, and sometimes he won't. And when he doesn't, the worst thing we can do is keep going, but I demand an answer. I demand an answer. I demand an answer. We eventually have to go, we're not going to get an answer for why that terrible thing happened until after we're dead. And so once we come to peace and go, I don't know why God allowed this, it just did, then we can ask a different question, which is, okay, if I'm not going to get an answer to why this has happened, what's God doing in me in this? And you can't ask that second question until you've let loose the first question. Then you get to a point where you go, all right, God, I give up asking why. I give up asking why my marriage is collapsing. I give up asking why my wife has done this, that, and the other. What are you doing in me? And how am I meant to battle for myself and for my children? And to be honest, I would even say, how am I meant to battle for my wife or my ex-wife? I think we're still meant to be fighting on their behalf somehow.
Well, yeah, because we're always going to be in relation with them. They're not going away. So that is a huge point, particularly because God has made men in our masculine nature wanting to know what's going to happen next, right? Because like you said, sometimes he's not going to tell you, or sometimes it's not going to be readily evident to you. And this what I describe as a chaotic time is incredibly uncertain for men, because we want to like, okay, well, everything's turned upside down, but we want we still want to know where to go, how we're getting there, what the steps are, have it linear, go through the process. And that's really hard. And so that, that speaks maybe to faith, right? And so talk about faith or ideas and ways that we can maybe relinquish some of this masculine nature, and not saying that you need to change your masculine nature, but relinquish some of this humanness that we have, in be able to trust and have faith.
So let's parse out masculinity. Sort of the comic book masculinity version is, tell me where to go and I'll go there.
Yes.
And I think that's what we're looking for God to do, is go, like you said, this is chaos. Tell me where to go. I'll meet you there, God.
Right.
And I think God balks at that. I think he looks at us and says, well, you're not God, and you're probably going to mess up. You won't know the way. And we'll buck but I know where I need to, I just need to get to December. I know I need to, when this is all fine, when this is I just need to get there. And I think God goes, I don't want that. The God I see in the Bible seems to say this, and I think this is actually a deeper form of masculinity. God goes, I want you to go here, and I'm going to walk with you. And faith says, all right, then I'm going to hang up my own. I got to figure it out. I'm going to get from A to B, and I'm going to map it all out. Real faith says, I'm going to walk alongside this other soldier, brother Jesus, and he will walk me through this every step of the way. And that changes the journey from a 6-month journey to a everyday journey. And I'm walking with God today, and I'm walking with God today, and I'm listening to him. So let me unpack that for a moment, because that sounds so highfalutin, like, well, just walk with God. What I mean by that is you listen to him, and you let him communicate through the scriptures, through what he's saying deep down in your soul, that are the right things you're meant to do that day. And if he's talking to you going, hey, I want you to not respond with bitterness in this moment. You go, but I really just want to get to A. Part of getting to A, or part of getting to B, is just let some of that bitterness go. And you let God inform you in small spots along the way. And when you screw up, because you will, you go, God, I'm sorry. I let my temper get away from me. I got passive when you wanted me to be active. I'm sorry. Will you give me another chance? And if we're walking with God, he goes, yeah, buddy, like, my mercies are new every day. Yeah. What he doesn't want you to do is mess up and then go, all right, beat it, God. I'll take care of everything from here on out. True, deep, biblical masculinity is walking alongside God and letting him daily inform the path we take from A to B.
Right. That's awesome. And I want to tie this in, because I talk about the 4 pillars and the spiritual pillar, and we talk about getting present. And what you just described to me is not projecting into the future, not thinking about the past and what's happened, but getting present. And then when you're getting present, finding an anchor. For guys like you and me, it's Christ. It's it's the teachings that we follow. But for some others, and those that might be struggling with their spirituality, or haven't developed their spirituality, or just have never been taught a lot of it. I was taught the wrong way, right? So unfortunately, I had to undo and then redo. So if you're listening, you've never taught, that's actually that can be a positive thing, because you can start off from the right thing. But let's just talk about finding a way and some tools to get anchored into what you just talked about, which is that bigger picture and a greater, how do I want to say it, a greater something greater at work, like God and whatever. I mean, I just want people listening, the men listening, to think of this in a bigger picture. You don't have to like don't focus on a word, don't focus on the word Jesus, focus on the word faith, just focus on a greater picture of what we're talking about here, and then how it applies to what's going on right now. But let's unpack that even a little further about what you said about the getting present, finding that anchor of God or in your spirituality in order to work through these challenges.
I think of that, of whatever that is, and I will strongly suggest it's God in Jesus, as like there's this great photo of this lighthouse off the coast of France called La Jument, and you should look it up, LA space JUMONT. And this is a powerhouse lighthouse. This thing it's not on a beach, it's out in the middle of the water. And there are these photos, I can't remember what year these photos were taken, but a massive storm has hit off the coast, and it is pummeling this lighthouse. And in one of these key photos, the guy who was taking the photos of this, he's in a helicopter, and the helicopter has just come around. And in this photo of La Jument, down at the base, right as this wave is crashing on the back of this lighthouse keeper has just walked out the front door, and he's looking up at the helicopter like, everything's fine. Everything's fine. He's cool as November, this guy. He's just looking up at this helicopter while the storm has hit. And I think that that's God. And we are meant to be, God is La Jument, and we are like that lighthouse keeper who is like, I am so tucked into this other. I mean, you look at us, we're balding, like we're losing our strength. We're getting old. We're fallible. We're not gods. And I'm actually talking about this weekend at the church. We're not gods. And I know that seems like an obvious statement, but I think we think of ourselves as gods a little too often. We're not gods. So what does that mean? We need a God. We need someone bigger, longer lasting, who sees things from maybe this is it. I'll lean in close for this. Who sees things from a perspective that we don't see them. He sees the beginning and the end. He's outside of time. He's everything we need. He's that La Jument, that what's the phrase? There's a phrase for this, but basically imperturbable. He's unmovable. Mm-hmm. And so when we draw in close to that God, we have to begin with humility. And the humility says, I guess I'm not God. Don't we all need to get to that spot at some point and go, I don't think I'm a God. Yeah, we're not a God. And so we need a God. And I would posit we need a God friend. It's one of the strangest things, and I think some guys might need to hear this today, is that whatever your baggage was with religion, one of the things you didn't see in what you were taught was that Jesus said, I am a friend. We got taught with this, oh God, I'll smite all you. And Jesus says, I don't call you slaves, I call you friends. And when we get tight with that friendship aspect of God, that goes back to the day by day. And you use that phrase, anchoring. I can be anchored to something bigger and more powerful than myself.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, because so the humility thing, and when I went through my divorce, I struggled with, and I know a lot of men struggle with, oh, this is not what I expected, right? This is now I don't have the family that I had envisioned. I don't have, now my career is going to completely change. It's going to be challenging. I'm not going to live where I thought I was going to be living. I'm not going to, so all of this stuff becomes in, but then and a lot of us, our initial thing is to think our way out of it then. Like, oh, then I'm going to do this, or this is how I'm going to get through, and then start planning, as opposed to what you just said is, go back and look at this greater. You don't know. You've got to only stop and then find that anchor, what you talk about. And I know it drives like some of the pastors crazy. Jesus is the original self-help guru, right? right?
Sure.
Right. And really the Bible is the original self-help book.
Mhm.
If you want to think about it in those terms, and not just and not advocating, but there is, and then the other thing I want to say also is exactly what you described of being taught this wrong way to think about that. So and I'll bring it to the terms of the self-help industry these days, right? Everybody loves the Chopras and the Dispenzas and the Bradens and all of these guys, but they're just talking in a very focused manner about many of the concepts that Christ and the New Testament have talked about, but not from the Bible. And so one of those would be the humility and opening your mind to something that that is greater. Now, what they're unable to do, because they're very specific, is anchor that in something greater, like God.
I agree.
So
I think it's like they clean off the right thing, but then don't put the correct thing on the table.
exactly, that's the exact point. Thank you. Exact point I want to say. And that's not to say that, because I've read all of them and they have helped immensely in my life and in practice. And in our meetings that we talk about individual practice, there's books and practices and stuff that we work through with and all of this stuff. But that does not then lead anyone to what you just described, which is then having that friend, that person, that greater something that is with you through this process. And so I want to bring that back then to the spiritual warfare idea of, wow, okay, we just got real deep into this. We've just kind of like pulled things away. Now this is a time of spiritual warfare where there might be all of this stuff pushing against you to not allow you to see this, but this is the opportunity. And I know many of the men that are listening are so distraught, and I was so distraught, and it's so hard and it's so challenging that it's an opportunity right now to look and say, oh, okay, I see, I can't control it. I can go, I need that anchor. I need that friend to move it. So let's try to pull that together. Then the warfare that we're going to be going through, the battle that we are going to have through a divorce or a challenge, and how to maybe a first step to cultivating that friendship and then placing that anchor.
Yeah, there's a few things there. Let me step back to humility real quick, because I just can't think that they're so important. I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's one verse that's repeated 3 times in scriptures, and it's said in at 3 different distinct times, and the same thing is said every time. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble.
I love it.
And that is woven throughout scripture. God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. I'll say it a third time. God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. And it makes me think of this fab, I should have looked it up, but this fab quote from Nixon, Richard Nixon, when Eisenhower died. And I love this quote. Nixon said, I'm going to botch it, but it's something like, Eisenhower's confidence or his humility did not come from a place of weakness, but came from a place of confidence. And it's weird to think that our humility can actually come from a place of confidence. And I think that humility that comes from a place of confidence is, I don't have to get all riled up. I don't have to stand my ground against my wife or whatever, because I'm confident that God has me and I'm walking with him and I can be at a place of humility. So anyway, there's the humility thing. Building a friendship with God, man, well, there's so much to that. And I think let me start with a banner thing of like, it's great, but not always easy. And I think that's kind of the point. If there was a A, B, C, D, E, we'd all, us guys would go do it. Exactly. And then we got it. Right. I mean, I don't think, I may be wrong here, but I don't think building a friendship with God is any different than building a friendship with a buddy. Mm-hmm. You're getting to know the person. You're asking them questions. You're telling them about you. You're honest. You're listening. You're checking them out. I think that's what we're meant to do with God. So you open the scriptures and you read things and you go, I don't know what this means. And you ask God, will you just show me maybe what this means? You build a genuine friendship with God. And there's books about this. that you could definitely look into. But building that friendship with God gets you to a place of, you had said the word faith, and that's right, trust. For me, trust is predicated on two things. When we're trusting God, it's predicated on two things. That one, you believe he is infinitely wise. That means he sees things you can't see. So his perspective is right. So it's infinitely wise, and the other is completely loving. Completely loving, meaning he has your ultimate best interests at heart. And so I will never trust, I really won't trust a human, but I definitely won't trust a God who's only one, but not the other. If I just think he's wise, I'm going to go, well, he's this terrible God who's just trying to da 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 da. If I just think he's loving, I'll go, oh, good, he wants just happy times for me and Netflix and ice cream. Yay. It's both. It has to be both. And so if you're struggling with trust issues with God, hey, give yourself a break. You've probably had some things in your life that would lead you to that point. Don't beat yourself up. Sure. But then go, okay, where am I not believing he's infinitely wise? And investigate that. And where am I not believing he's really loving to me? And investigate that. And I think if you can investigate those things enough and start to allow yourself to come to the understanding that he is fully wise and he is fully loving, you'll get to where you trust him and will want to walk with him as that friend.
Right. I love the idea of developing the relationship just like you develop a relationship with a buddy. And that's perfect. And then just like doing that, and just like investigating anything or anybody, you're going to take time then, right? If it's important to you, you're going to take the time, and we talk about this, going through the process of taking time to maybe learn to journal and write down, or maybe read a book. Oftentimes we recommend books that will help you go through the process. Same thing here. Go find scripture, read about it, spend that time having that conversation, get quiet. We talk about meditation, we talk about how to, skills about how to get present. We've gone through that as part of one of the pillars of self-care for spirituality. But this takes it then to the next step, which is anchoring that in something that is established. Like we'd take a book and say, oh, okay, this has been a successful book, it's been sold so many times. Same thing with the Bible and scripture. Now I have the same belief system as you. I believe that for me has been huge in my life. I have seen the results 9.5 years down my life, or post-divorce in my life, and having that be an anchor now. But it doesn't have to be. It can be like developing that relationship with God, however you might see it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's always going to come down to, we're all looking for truth. Yeah. Isn't that the base thing? We just want to build our lives on, I think it's Francis Schaeffer, someone uses this phrase, true truth, which is a shame we have to use that because it just means the same thing, but we're at a point where we have to say true truth, and building our lives on things that are true. And as you suss out, maybe some of your listeners are sussing out a variety of spiritual avenues, just ask yourself, is this true truth? Or is there a part of this that's true, but I don't think this is fully true? Just follow your nose towards, I think we were all built, what's the phrase, that there's a God-sized hole in the midst of every man, and we're constantly looking for the God that fits that spot. And I think you'll find it. If you seek me, you will find me, it says in the scriptures. And I believe that firmly.
Right. And you're going to have to battle for this. This is not going to be something that you, just like anything that's important, whether you want success in your career, success in a relationship, you're going to have to battle for that. And that's where it comes to this mindset of spiritual warfare, because there's going to be all kinds of stuff that is going to come your way through this challenging time of divorce, that maybe the court's not going to rule in your favor. Maybe your attorney's going to screw things up. Maybe you're not going to get to see your kids, or you're going to have to battle to see your kids. And that's the specific point now that I want to end with, is that this is going to be a battle. This is not, and it's not a battle for right now. And it's
That's
not
right.
and it's not a battle just in this moment. It's a greater battle. So take us home, if you will, on that, Jeff, with this being a greater battle, and it's a spiritual battle, and it's just damn important that you are engaged in it as a dad, not only for yourself, but for your children as well. And maybe we won't take this home yet. Maybe we'll talk about it in the context of why it's important with children too. I don't know.
Yeah.
It depends on, I'm not going to put you putting you on a spot. It depends on how succinct you are, I guess.
Okay. I'll do what I can. I remember when I was a kid, I don't remember, fourth grade, I'd always heard of World War II and big world wars. I guess there were just the two of them. And I thought, oh, wow, that must have been intense. And I really thought they were about 2 or 3 weeks long. And I think my jaw dropped as a 10-year-old when I went, they were 4-5 years long. Right. A war went that long. I mean, I was blown away. This is a long war. It's a long war. It's not just today. It's not the fight today. And I think, Jude, what you're getting at is stay in it.
Yes.
Stay in it. So I have a fun prescription for everyone. This will be a good prescription. I prescribe, Dr. Jeff, please do not follow my medical advice. My prescription is this: get by yourself on some night and start watching a bunch of old war movies. Watch a bunch of War II movies. Watch Dirty Dozen. Watch Saving Private Ryan. Whatever war movie you got. Go watch that movie. What's the one with the guy who won't fight? I can't remember. Hacksaw Ridge. Watch some of these war movies. Okay. And okay, now this is going to sound kooky to some people, but I couldn't care less. Right before you hit play on the movie, I want you to say this prayer: God, I think you're out there. You might be out there. Will you talk to me through this movie? Boink. That's it. Then watch the movie. And as you're watching, try to identify who you are in that movie. Who do you relate to? And almost every war movie has a guy who wants to give up and run away and go, I'm out. How do I get out of here? Guys, let's back. And recognize that we all, and don't beat yourself up for it, but recognize we all have a tendency to go, it's too much. It's too much. It's too much. We are meant to stay in this. Why? Because there's so much in the balance. And I think it's important to understand, I think every GI overseas understood what was in the balance. So a good journaling exercise for all of us would be, what's in the balance? What gets lost? I'll pause here to say this really well. What gets lost if I give up? What gets lost if I give up? And don't just go, well, my kids, my did it. I want you to get specific. My kids lose their confidence, and that turns into this, and this. I become a bitter, frustrated man. My wife comes to resent me, and in resenting me, resents all men. Yeah. What is at stake here? And that will help gird your loins. That's a good phrase from scripture. Yeah, gird your loins to go, I'm going to keep fighting. Maybe I'll bring some of this home with this, because I'm a big do the tough stuff guy. But also remember that Jesus is kind and loving, and it has to be both. If you have all one without the other, you're going to be out of whack. You're going to be out of whack. So maybe I'll zero in towards this. I got a buddy who does some teaching around spiritual warfare, and it's all get in there, fight, pray, disagree with the enemy, do all this stuff. But he ends with this, and I love this image. He does this as like a guided prayer thing. He says, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to, well, Jude, can I do that? Can I tell people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, why not? No, what else are we going to do? Okay. So here's what we're going to do. You listener, unless you're driving, close your eyes. And I just want you to pause. And I want you to picture yourself on a battlefield. And it's nighttime, and the bombs are going off everywhere. And you smell the smell of carbon and gunshot Bullets are whizzing by. The tracer bullets are going by. Trees are being shredded. And you look around and there are bodies, fallen comrades nearby. And maybe you've got some blood on your uniform and you've had your bell rung. Your ears are ringing because of the explosions, and it is chaos. And it's just chaos. And you're both amped up, but also scared to death. And that's where you might be right now. And something in you knows you're meant to keep going and you're meant to keep fighting. But you look off to the side of the battlefield, and there's this big tent, and there's a warm glow coming from it. And so you dodge the bullets, and you go up to this tent, pull the flap back, walk in, and it's like the war isn't even happening. It is calm, it's warm in there, it's light, and it's peaceful. And you look up, and there's Jesus, the commander, the general, Jesus. And yes, he's got on the uniform, but when he walks up to you, he's not walking up to you going, why don't you get out there and fight? Why aren't you He looks at you, oh man, he looks at you with eyes of compassion, and he sees your wounds, and he puts his hands on your shoulders, and he says, I know it's hard. I know it's hard. And he puts his hands on your wounds, and your wounds are healed. And he puts his arms around you, and he embraces you. And in that embrace, you experience love and restoration like you've never experienced before. And he sits you down at a table, and he gives you the food you need and water, and cleans you off and talks with you, letting you know that he is there with you, and he will be with you as you leave the tent and go back and fight. And that tent, I believe, is available to you and to me at all times.
Yeah.
Maybe you can open your eyes and just know that there's a good Father who cares a lot about you, who knows the fight is challenging. He wants you to keep fighting, but he wants to be there with you.
Jeff, that was amazing. You took it home. My friend, I'm so grateful. And so that you did the first time thing ever, you got me to cry on my podcast.
Yay, I did it.
But and I think you also gave me another great idea. We're going to do a get together and watch some war movies.
There you go.
Divorced dads. Maybe we'll live stream it for all of you guys listening across the world, and we can do it all together, because I think that's again that vision of what you just brought us through, I think resonates everywhere with the world wars that we've all experienced, and that's something that we can all grasp onto as men across the world, and we have listeners all over the world as well. So I would sincerely want to thank you for all of your wisdom that you shared with us. Where can the listeners connect with you?
You can email me at jeff@thelighthousepoint.com. That's my website, thelighthousepoint.com. You know what? I got my business website, and then you can go to jeffdav.com, JEFF Dav, DAV.com, jeffdav.com. That has more of the spiritual stuff on it. So you can grab me there.
Awesome.
And Jude, really, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here. And let me just say, if there's anything I said that felt like I was trying to speak into something I have no business speaking into, please forgive me. I hope everyone knows that God is more kind than we think, and more available than we think.
Amen. And let's leave it at that. Jeff,
Got it.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
God bless.
Yeah, you too. See you guys.